What's up, everybody? It's Keefy from Ghost Cult Magazine, ghostcultmag.com, and you are here for another War Stories with Keefy. Episode 4. Amazing, made it to 4 episodes. Just a quick recap. We're still experimenting with the formats here, so from week to week to week, you may see a little different camera action. Coming to you from the GCHQ, aka my bedroom in my apartment in Brooklyn. And War Stories, this has been great. The feedback has been very good. I've been really pleased. And very, very happy about it. Episode 4, just to recap the episodes, because I like to give a little recap. At a certain point, we're going to get to too many of these to do a recap, but in case you missed the earlier ones, episode 1 was about Woodstock 99 and how I got caught in the stampede caused by Limp Bizkit. Episode 2 was about my indoctrination into New York hardcore. My very first time going to CBGB's, the most famous punk rock and metal club in the world. Probably ever. Episode 3 was about my incredible adventure getting to interview Ozzy Osbourne for one question 9 years ago at the Tribeca Film Festival for the God Bless Ozzy Osbourne film. And then tonight's episode is the infamous Whitney Houston story. Anybody who's followed the Ghost Cult podcast or the Dumb and Dumbest podcast or any podcast I have been a guest on, this usually comes up in my musical background. I have a Whitney Houston story that I need to tell, and I sang with Whitney Houston once. It's a pretty incredible story. It is all true. None of the names were changed to protect the guilty or the innocent. And I think it's a lot of fun. I think this is a fun story. War stories in general are not about war. It's just about the war indicates some kind of turmoil, strife, dilemma, ennui, issue, which if you know me, that's all of me. The war stories are tales from my career as a music journalist, my life playing in bands for 20 plus years in New York City and all thereabouts, as well as my journey as a music fan, which has been my entire life. But I have probably attended, since I am 4 or 5 years old, about 6,000 concerts, give or take. I think I stopped counting at a certain point. I played in 2,000 plus performances, so that's a big chunk of it, at least a third. And then the other 2/3 is shows. Just shows as an artist, shows as a journalist. Thousands of band interviews, thousands of, hundreds of shows shot, thousands of interviews, thousands of shows attended as either a musician or fan or journalist. So, thank you for being on this journey with me. You'll probably hear me say that again. To recap, for those that don't know, I have had quite a precipitous journey up and down in music. And as I said, been a music fan all my life. Earliest, happiest childhood memories were of music. Came from the ghettos of the Bronx, New York. I now live in Brooklyn. Even as a little kid, my music was always around. I had an older brother that played rock music in bands and turned me on to that stuff, that turned me into a metalhead. But my parents were very strictly into jazz and classical music. My mom was a little bit into rock and classic rock, but a lot of world music because she was a Middle Eastern dancer and a ballroom dancer. So lots of different musical styles in my upbringing that melded me, plus your friends, pop music. Growing up in the Bronx at the birthplace of rap, when people kind of stopped killing each other with guns and knives and would be like, yo, instead of stabbing you, let's rap and let's break dance. Let's rhyme for bragging rights instead of me pummeling you. So that was kind of all around me as a child. And musical upbringing, music lessons, music school. I took music theory as a kid. I took classical guitar, wasn't very good at it. Picked up a bass guitar in my teenagehood. I spent a lot of time in musical theater. I was a theater kid. This seems to be funny to metalheads that I was a theater kid, but I was. I think a lot of things in musical theater trained me for heavy metal, as both a performer and a fan. And after a lot of work in all-city chorus and extracurricular activities in community theater and off-Broadway and dinner theater and auditioning for commercials, I ended up going to the Performing Arts High School of New York City, LaGuardia High School for Performing Arts and Music and Art. It's a very long-winded thing. It was two schools combined into one in the late 70s, early 80s. The famous TV show and movie Fame is based on this school. I had some famous classmates. I don't have to name drop them now. I'm already going to be a name dropping douche in these stories, but we don't have to name drop stories. We don't have to name drop and tell stories. So, yeah, just craziness. A lot of craziness back in the day. But I ended up going to high school in Manhattan, taking the train every day, going to Performing Arts High School. And, I tell this story sometimes, when you're a kid and you perform or you're in entertainment, a young artist, you're usually one special person in a crowd of a lot of other people. And it's not an ego thing, but it's kind of like, oh, there's not that many people that do what I do. Even when you join a troupe of performers, it's us against them. There's a small number of you and all of them, kind of like a band, same kind of vibe. But then you go to performing arts school, or you go to conservatory, or you go to dance school, or you go to art school. I'm sure art school students, Art School Confidential talked all about this, that film, kind of broke this experience down. Once you kind of get around all these other talented people, you're not so special anymore, no matter what everybody told you. And I was definitely told all my life that I was a beautiful and unique special snowflake, and I was, wonderful. And I'm pretty cool, but I don't know about wonderful and amazing and immaculate. But I had my moments when I was very talented. I clearly auditioned and got into the school more than one time, actually. I auditioned as an 8th grader also. We go, in America, we go either grade, first grade to 8th or first grade to 9, and then 10, 11, 12, or 9, 10, 11, 12, depending on where you are in the country. And in New York City, you had the option to either go into high school as a 9th grader or a 10th grader. And I made it as a 9th grader, but I ended up not going. I made it for both acting and voice, but I made it in for voice, much to the chagrin and surprise of my junior high school full of bullies and dickheads, including some of the people who ended up making the school with me and going with me. They were in disbelief. They were like, you? Like, yes, me. Like, I lived kind of like a double life, to be honest. I grew up very poor. I maybe had like 3 days worth of clothes for a 5-day school week. And my mom would wash my clothes by hand at night and then dry them out and put them back on me sometimes. But at night I would come home from school, leave school early. In elementary school, I got to leave school early to go take guitar lessons. It was like the one, we scrimped and saved. And I got guitar lessons, and I wasn't really great, but it was, formed me a little bit. I ended up picking up the bass later, and that was really my true instrument beside the voice. And so, I would come home from school bummy, change into nicer clothes, and then go into theater group and go into singing lessons and then go into do whatever. So I kind of had a double life. But in, all junior high school, I was bullied without mercy every single day, almost every day. And then I went to high school with all these other talented, gifted kids. I was like, oh, I'm going to be with people who are just like me. They're going to understand me. They're going to be like me. No, they were also bullies and dicks, some of them. Interestingly enough, I had my 20-year high school reunion. And now it's almost the 30-year reunion, but I had my 20-year high school reunion, and I was on the fence about going, and I had reconnected with some of my friends, and they were like, come on, go. It's going to be awesome. You're going to have a good time. Don't worry about where your station in life is. Everybody's going to accept you and love to see you, and you were very well liked. I was like, I don't think I was well liked. I was kind of a freak. I was a long-haired heavy metal freak with a stonewashed jacket, and I convinced my mom. My mom convinced me to cut my hair for senior pictures, which I regretted because I had like a mullet. A really weird, like a Charlie Brown curly Q in the front, little greasy hair gel, 80s, 90s look in the front, and then like long hair to the back of my neck. Great. But anyway, luckily it grew back out, and I ended up having a beautiful long heavy metal hair most of the 90s and into the early aughts. But so you go to the Performing Arts High School, and I had performed all my life. I sang in front of big audiences. I performed at Carnegie Hall when I was 12 and 13. I performed in all-city chorus. I was always a lead. I was always, a starring kind of kid. And I got to LaGuardia, and I think I didn't realize this until much later in life, but I had been an anxious person all my life. Well, much worse than depression. I do get depression sometimes, but anxious, anxiety, really bad, crippling anxiety, and not like the social awkwardness, because I'm a fucking ham. Although sometimes I feel that too, but like I just, it just manifested, and I was having some problems at home all through high school, but especially that first year. I had gotten the flu or something, and I was really sick. And then my very first semester, I missed like a few weeks of school, and they were calling my house and yelling at my mom. And then my dad passed away over Christmas, which was really terrible. And I came back, and my teacher was very mean about it. She was like, "What excuse do you have now? Another letter from your mom?" Yeah, my dad died. You know, I still got all A's, but like, they wanted you to be there for the work. Um, Except math, which I've just never been great at. But so anyway, as I traveled through high school, you very serious. There's equal in a performing arts high school. It's like equal parts strenuous academics and strenuous arts. So whatever you do, it's like conservatory level classes, and whatever, it's chamber music or sight reading, music theory, everything. And I struggled mightily, just between the personal problems and death in the family and anxiety. And I had trouble singing in a small group of people. Like every class is like 10, 15 kids, and every test is a teacher, some of them nice, some of them not nice. And I had a hard time focusing. I just couldn't perform. People picked on me and made fun of me for it. I would get like overwhelmed and I couldn't sing. I would stutter, which I don't stutter. I don't have a stutter when I speak, but I stuttered. And I would get like a panic attack, and I couldn't take tests, and I couldn't function. It's pretty bad. I want to say I could have gotten kicked out. I don't think they would have kicked me out. They were trying to work with me with it. Some teachers were nicer than others about it. They were understanding. They would let me come back in later and do a test by myself, and I would just rock it. And I don't know what happened to me. I lost like that confidence. For 3 years, I was like a wreck all the time. Like in a crowd, in a chorus, I'm great. But like by myself, with the attention on me, I couldn't hack it. Just melted down. So, again, when I finally went to my reunion, people didn't remember me for how cool I was or that I was interesting and different. They remembered that I had like emotional problems, and they picked on me about it in front of me at grown-ups. Amazing. Anyway, most of the people I went to school with actually were pretty cool, and I'm still friends with some of them today, which is nice. Fast forward to senior year, and as part of senior year, you have senior chorus and concerts and stuff, but you also have your academics, which you're trying to pass to get through high school, and you're also trying to pass strenuous music classes, because you could graduate and not actually pass your music classes, and there was an actual certificate component to your high school diploma that meant you got the degree from the performing arts high school or you didn't. And I was like, no, this is not going to fucking happen to me. I'm going to pass this fucking thing. And there was one particular teacher that I had all through school, a very legendary music coach and teacher, who was extraordinarily mean. So she would not only, she liked you and you were one of her favorites, her pets, we used to call them, behind their backs, which was also mean, but they were her pets. She would treat them very well. But if you were, in her glare, if you were in her crosshairs, you were fucked. And she would not just insult your singing or your performing or your technique. She'd also be like, what are you wearing? Why do you get dressed like that? Did your parents send you out of the house this way? What is wrong with your hair? Can't you go get that done? Like, she was vicious. Little old lady. She's probably overcompensating with a Napoleonic complex. She had a little curly hands like the emperor, because she played piano for like 100 years. Like 4'10", gap tooth, unattractive, mean as fuck lady. People loved her or they hated her or they feared her. I was definitely in the latter. And but I had her a couple of times, and of course she was going to be one of my senior voice teachers, of course. And we had an interesting opportunity come up during senior chorus. Normally there's a senior chorus, a final concert, summer concert, winter concert, orchestra, chorus perform together. We also performed one of my favorite pieces of music It was already one of my favorite pieces of music of all time, Carmina Burana. You probably know Burana, sorry. You probably know it as the music that Ozzy comes out to. It has been used in rap songs. It's been used in a lot of popular music. It's usually used as like devil music. It's usually used to, it's very ominous sounding. And unlike most music, it gets faster and faster and faster toward the end, which is unusual that it speeds up, because most music, classical music, just kind of stay, each movement has its own kind of cadence and pace, and this gets faster and faster and more chaotic. And it's a lot of rhythms and dynamics and stuff. Devil music, basically. It's incredible. So I'll link it in the description so you can check it out. And again, it as the music that Ozzy has come out to as a solo artist his entire career, basically, since he left Black Sabbath. So was fired, left, whatever. So senior year, we get ready to have senior chorus, and we get an interesting opportunity. Our conductor comes up to us, and he, in a class, and he's like, class, I like your attention. It's about 300 plus kids, maybe 320 kids, 800 kids in the graduating class. Senior chorus was at least a third of it or more. It was like, we're going to have the opportunity to pick out a select group of you from this greater group and go perform for the President of the United States. Wow, what? Okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, like, I didn't think I was going to get picked, but I was like, that's fucking pretty cool. We're going to go perform for the president. It was George Herbert Walker Bush the first. This is 1990. That's how old I am. I was 17 in 1990. I turned 18 during that fall. September, baby. And so, wow, that's awesome. He's like, but beyond that, that's not all. But wait, there's more. Not only are you going to perform for the president, you're going to get handpicked, some of you, by the performer of the night, who is Marvin Hamlisch, the famous Broadway conductor. And Marvin Hamlisch is writing a original patriotic song to perform for the president. The kids are going to come in and support him. And well, wait, there's more. Not only will you sing for the president, you might get picked by Marvin Hamlisch. Marvin Hamlisch is going to conduct you in a song he wrote himself for the president. The featured star of the night, on top of Marvin Hamlisch, Whitney Houston. The Whitney Houston. The whole place is bugging out now. The whole group, the whole room of kids, a giant chorus room with risers and seats, and the conductor conducted us weekly, whatever we were working on towards a performance. Sopranos, altos, basses, tenors, baritones. In my mind, I'm not going to get picked. I'm a loser. I was frequently omitted and kicked, not allowed to do things. I'll leave it at that. There were definitely some issues. Again, I was kind of a difficult kid. I think I was nice. Some people did like me, but I don't know. I have difficult because I was as usual, like I am as an adult, also my own personal turmoil, but my own existential crisis that never ends. But people are bugging out. Well, I'm going to get, little kids, bravado. I'm going to get picked. They're not going to pick you. In my brain, I'm not getting picked. But to my favor, there weren't a lot of boys or young men to sing bass, tenor, or baritones. There's a small group of us, the smallest group of us of any group. And I, on my best day, had the ability to sing bass, tenor, and baritone and cross over between the ranges, which most in that group couldn't. Few of the tenors could sing lower, and most of the baritones couldn't sing higher. So I didn't think about this, but like it was told to me later, that's why you were picked. You have versatility. And I was like, oh, word. You usually derided and picked on. That's thankful that somebody recognized my taste, my talent. But we were all tested. You get tested, you get retested. You have to pass an audition to get into the school, which I had, but you get retested, and then Marvin Hamlisch comes in to meet us, play the song for us, and then test the whole 300 of us over a few hours. And he literally listened to everybody. He ran you through a scale. He listened to you sing a part of the song he picked out, one part for the boys, one part for the ladies. Altos and sopranos, different range, tenors and bass, different range. And he picked me. Out of 320-something kids, I was one of 80, about 80. I was kind of in shock. A lot of people were mad. Some people cried. Some girls cried. Some guys cried. There was one guy that didn't get picked. He cried. So, people were sad and mad and all kinds of emotions. And They might have even had some counseling available to us. Like, some of you are not going to get picked. I didn't even expect to get picked. So what did this mean? So we get picked, and Marvin Hamlisch is like, I'm going to come back here the next 8 weeks, once a week, or during your class time. I'm going to teach you all the song. We're going to practice the song. You still have to do all your other stuff, of course. Then Whitney Houston is going to come in. She's going to rehearse with us a few times. She's going to learn the song. You're going to get to meet her. She's going to come in and rehearse with you. And then we're all going to go to Washington and perform together for the president. This shit seems unfathomable to me. For those that don't know, because, mostly we cover heavy music, heavy rock and heavy metal and all kinds of metal and punk and hardcore and indie rock, and not Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is one of the greatest singers of all time. She was, rest in peace, she was a living legend at that time. That was the pinnacle of her fame, 1990. She had just dominated the 80s. She had the biggest selling record of 1986. Her debut album sold 22 million copies, just under the amount that Thriller sold, as one of the greatest selling albums of all time. She had her second album, Whitney Houston, sold another like 20-something million. In the 90s, after this time, she had the Bodyguard soundtrack, where she sold another like 45 million records, even though it wasn't officially her own release. It's mostly her album. She, immediately after this whole story, she went on to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, which my team, the New York Giants, eventually won during the original Gulf War in January of 1991. And that rendition of the United States national anthem became a hit single because of her, a million-selling hit single on cassette and, I guess, CD. It was pretty fucking unbelievable, actually. So Whitney Houston was just my brain. It was just like, I can't handle this. I'm going to be around a pop star. Now, going to this high school, you would meet rock and pop stars. They would come to the school sometimes. Stevie Wonder came to the school one time. Debbie Gibson came to the school one time and talked about how much she loved rock and heavy metal. It was the funniest fucking thing ever. They were like, who's your favorite singer? And they expected her to say, like, anybody else. And she was like, Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. It was amazing, actually. It filled me as a rock guy up with a lot of pride. And she was really nice. But yeah, so we start learning the song with Marvin Hamlisch. We're anticipating Whitney at some point. Weeks come by. He comes into the school and rehearses us. Our conductor rehearses us. In the meantime, we're all learning our parts. We're like fervently learning the sheet music. Very patriotic, very similar to Lee Greenwood's Proud to be an American, which is not one of my favorite songs. But it's something like that. Just very like, it was called One Song. If we all sing one song in one voice and one hope and one dream, it's very jingoistic and, very typically American. Sorry for all of y'all non-Americans listening to this story. I am proud to be an American, but sometimes not so much because of our leaders. So we learn the song. Weeks are peeling by. The date to go to Washington to perform is June 10th. It's April, it's May, no Whitney. Marvin comes in, teaches like, finally we're getting like 3 weeks out. And we're given a story that Whitney is in Atlanta working on her next album and she can't come rehearse with us. We're going to have a stand-in person come in, sing her parts with you so we can get a sense of how you're doing and how she's going to do. And we'll see Whitney in D.C. She's going to learn the song in advance. Cool, okay. Whitney is in Atlanta, I believe, with Babyface Edmonds making I'm Your Baby Tonight, which wound up coming out in like 1991 or 2, and was a huge hit record for her again. Maybe not the big numbers of the 80s, but a very early 1990s New Jack Swing, cusp of New Jack Swing R&B pop record. Great songs. She did a song on there with Stevie Wonder. She sang a song on there with her mom, Cissy Houston. They tried to make Whitney dance. She really should not have been trying to dance. She was, tall and lanky and beautiful. Just like Rob Halford doesn't jump around anymore. Whitney should not have been trying to jump around. It's very hard to jump around and sing or scream. Any of you metal guys and gals out there singing, and anybody else. just let her stand still and do her thing. Belt out these notes. That's what she's great at. She had a one-of-a-kind voice. I mean, just an incredible range and an unbelievable... Her voice was like a tenor saxophone. It was so powerful. And that's just the records. Ironically, I think my junior high school graduation song was a Whitney Houston song, and a strange one. It was All at Once, which is like from her debut album, and it's like a very... people know The Greatest Love of All. People know I Will Always Love You more recently, but... more recently, I mean like 25 years ago, but All at Once is like a very sad love song about a breakup, about being depressed after a breakup, and I don't know why they picked that song, but I guess it's like the chorus is all at once, I'm all alone on a lonely sea, dreaming you were next to me. I don't know what that has to do with kids, confused teenagers graduating junior high school, relieved to get the fuck out of this dungeon of fucking education and abuse. But anyway, fuck you, junior high school 135. Anyway, only my friends will get that reference. But anyway, sorry everybody. So we're getting close to the wire, and in comes the stand-in singer. And I can't recall her name, which is really shitty. She looked like a dead ringer for 1980s Janet Jackson, like before Rhythm Nation, like Control, Pleasure Principle, or maybe it was, Control. Like she, kind of like short crop hairdo, white shirt tied around her waist, black otherwise, pretty girl, sang just like Whitney. She had a fantastic range, powerful voice, a little bit different, but very, obviously covered the parts. You got an idea of what the song would sound like by hearing her sing it. Like, oh, that's what it's going to sound like when Whitney comes in. We sang our part. She sang her part. She came in twice and practiced with us. It's the week before the concert. We're all like, where's Whitney? Where's Whitney? No Whitney. Whitney's going to join us in D.C. She has yet to learn the song, but she promises me she's going to know it by the day of the show. And then they were like, it's possible she might not make it because she's got deadlines as a, artist. So perhaps she won't be here. And, everybody was kind of like, oh, we're kind of looking forward to this. But okay, Marvin Hamlisch. If that name is familiar to you, the movie Role Models, which I absolutely love, which stars Paul Rudd, and there's a scene at the end where Christopher Mintz-Plasse, McLovin from the Superbad movie and a bunch of other movies, he's in that film, and he gives a peak speech at the end, and he was like, some people say I look like a young Marvin Hamlisch. I don't even know who the fuck that is. Fuck Marvin Hamlisch. It's really funny. He did look like a young Marvin Hamlisch. Marvin Hamlisch was a Broadway composer and conductor. He was Barbra Streisand's musical director for many decades. And my mom, rest in peace, was more excited about Marvin Hamlisch than she was about Whitney Houston. She was like, Whitney Houston, okay, cool. But she was like, Marvin Hamlisch, oh my God. Are you going to get to talk to him? I was like, I don't know. I've talked to him. He auditioned me. So we get ready to go to DC, and it turns out the performance is on June 10th, and the next day is our final exams, our final day of high school after 3 years of this experience. And I had final exams. I convinced a couple of teachers to give me some tests before, but my final voice exam for all of high school was the next morning at 9 o'clock. So we go to Washington the day before, perform with the president, and perform for the president with Marvin Hamlisch, hopefully for Whitney Houston, and come back on the red eye bus overnight and go to high school in the morning and basically take a test that means you get the degree or you don't. So we take the bus to DC. I'm studying my song for the night. I'm studying my final exam stuff. The only thing left was the performance that night, the final exam the next morning, prom, graduation. So we go to DC, and it's at I guess it's the old DC Convention Center. It's not like the new Washington, DC now where it's all built up and it's beautiful and safe. It was like a couple of nice blocks, all the national landmarks and museums, and a straight out abject crack ghetto. Sorry, Washington, D.C. and D.C. people. I love you, and I love that town, but, like, it was a wreck. It reminded me of the Bronx. I was like, it's like one step up from the Bronx. Like, almost burned out, bombed out areas, and, like, we drove downtown, and we were all like, this is DC. The president is here. Wow, the city is fucked. Just like our city. It's not that bad then. We were like, oh, New York's not that bad compared to this place. I'm sure other people come here and are like, wow, I thought it was bad back home. This place sucks. So we debark the bus. Anyway, we get off the bus and we're let into the back door through this convention center, 80 kids. And they were not prepared for us. They set up like a little dressing area for the ladies. They set up a dressing area for the young men. The young men all had tuxedos. The young women were all encouraged to wear dresses. Some of them wore their prom dresses. Because, you know, poor kids, city kids. Is Whitney coming? Maybe she is. Maybe she's not. We don't know. And they're like, oh, you know, like we don't perform till like 9 o'clock. And it's like 4 o'clock. And we had like a rehearsal in the dressing room with our conductor. And they were like, oh, we didn't plan for this well, the handlers of the event. They're like, let's get them some food. Like, can we go out and get dinner? It's a new city. Like, I've never been to Washington, D.C. I didn't travel. So let's go to get dinner. And they're like, no, you can't leave the building for security. We don't want to spoil the surprise. So we'll bring you in food. And what they brought us was like giant cardboard boxes of McDonald's in like toilet paper boxes, like, you know, big boxes that hold all the rolls. So that's all they had. And it was cold. And I was kind of nervous and, you know, anxious, so I didn't really eat much. And, you know, it was like, this is lame, but okay. I was happy to be there. I still couldn't even believe I was there. Everybody gets dressed up, put on your tux. We did a dress rehearsal. I tripped going up the stage on some bunting, and of course they're like, there goes Keith, fucking it up again. Good job, fat ass. Tripped going up the stairs. Practicing the dress rehearsal, sang fine. Go back. The place fills in, and it turns out that this entertainment, this event for President George Herbert Walker Bush was a fundraiser for his eventual, it was his birthday, and it was a fundraiser for his eventual next election, which he ran against Bill Clinton and lost, which was the first time I voted in a presidential election a few years later. Fun fact. So, we're waiting to go on. Marvin Hamlisch comes back. How's everybody doing? You guys look great. Whitney is here, and she's ready to sing. What? She learned the song today in an hour. We just finished rehearsing in another part of the building where they set up a little piano for me and her. And she's she's in makeup and hair now, and then she's going to come out and perform. Everything's going to be great. Don't worry. She's done this before. We were like, wow, she learned the song today? We've been practicing for 10 weeks. Marvin Hamlisch gets introduced. He comes out. He tells some jokes. He plays some piano. I think he tells some Barbra Streisand stories. And then he talks about this song that he wrote for the president. We're watching on like a little simulcast screen. And the plan is like it's a convention center with a dais where the president and his wife are and everybody else. And then there's dignitaries from all over the world eating fancy dinners off of gold silverware and plates. So we march in from the four corners singing our part of the song. Marvin Hamlisch plays the song. We all march in from all four corners. And then Whitney just walks out, big as life. We're all in our positions on the stage around the piano. And she marches in from the middle, from another vantage point, like a fifth point, similar to the layout of Washington, D.C. and Paris, which Washington, D.C. was modeled after. And she literally comes in. It's like a beam of light. A spotlight is on her. She looks like the I Want to Dance with Somebody video, Whitney. Humongous hair, beautiful face, incredible sequin gown, ginormous heels. She's enormously tall. She marches out singing her part. We're all singing. She's singing. We're all like, you can feel like a weird energy between all the kids, like, oh my God, it's really her. A couple of people are like, oh my God, it's really her. She's really here. This is cray. She comes on, bounds up the stage in the heels. I fell, not the second time, but I fell in the rehearsal. She bounds up the stage, hits the spotlight in the center of the stage, nails the whole end of the song. We all sing and like harmonize with her at the end on, big piano flourish. The crowd is going nuts. Bush stands up, applaud. We could see him like in the distance and the dais. And then we, take a bow and march out the way we came in. I did not fall. And then we go back into our little pen before we get changed, and like we're all like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I can't believe how amazing that was. It was an experience, you know. She was incredible, we were great. And our conductor comes back. He's gonna have a surprise for you guys. Marvin Hamlisch comes in. Hey everybody, great job, I want you to meet somebody. Whitney Houston comes in, big as life, right, to meet us. I was actually very close to the door, so she came right in next to me and asked me to hold. She had like an enormous fur. Gross, I know, but it was the 90s, in the early 80s and 90s. So she asked me to hold her fur, which weighed like a ton. She like draped it over my arm and kicked her shoes off, because her heels, right, were like high heels. And then she was still like a foot taller, like hugely taller than me. I don't know how tall between her and the hair, but she was enormous. And like, thank you, honey. And she took the coat back from me and kind of put it over her shoulder. And she was like, listen, you guys were amazing. I am so glad that we got to do this together. She apologized. She was like, I'm really sorry. I've been working on this record. This is like the most important record of my career. I'm working with a new producer I never worked with before, so this is a big deal for me. And I'm really, really sorry. I heard you guys worked your tails off. Marvin was my spy. He used to report back to me every week how you guys did. You guys were wonderful. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to be part of this. Thank you. She signed autographs for everybody. Marvin Hamlisch was kind of a dick about signing autographs, but he signed a few autographs. He was kind of a jerk at the end of everything. I don't know why. He was like in a bad mood or something. I guess, you know, you get upstaged by the superstar. But yeah, man, she was just really humble and sweet and down to earth after she just rocked the performance. And she scooted off to go on with the rest of her night, and we had to get changed into street clothes, put our clothes back in a garment bag or whatever, and get on the bus and go back to New York. It was 11:12 before we got on the bus, all of us. Only ate that McDonald's, and I think I barely ate, so I was like hungry. I think I had some snacks, so my mom packed me, but like, you know, we were just like, this is baddie. Ride the whole bus ride back. I'm like, can't sleep, insomnia as usual. I'm like studying my sheet music for the next morning. One of my classmates fell asleep on my shoulder. I'm like blasting whatever, instead of listening to my music, which I should have been, I was listening to probably a mixtape of Yes. That night, actually, I definitely was, because Big Generator had just come out the year before, and I was a big fan of Yes, and still am. And I'm like blasting Big Generator, progressive rock. A chaperone came over like twice. Turn that down. People are sleeping. I'm not sleeping. I'm studying. I have a final exam in a few hours. Anyway, we get back to New York City. We get dropped off at Columbus Circle at 4:45 a.m., almost 5 a.m. I've been out late before, like all night, but like never in the Midtown Manhattan this late. I get on the train. Some of my friends get on the train with me to go home, but basically I'm on the train almost the whole ride myself, all the way to the Bronx. Kind of scared, to be honest. My late dad had been robbed a bunch of times on the train. So that was like my stories of the train. I was always safe going to school in the morning, but like, you know, coming in the middle of the night or early in the AM, I was a little nervous. We get off the train just as dawn is breaking in the Bronx, run up to my house. My mom is, of course, awake as usual. Tell me all about it. How was Marvin Hamlisch? Fuck Marvin Hamlisch. Whitney Houston, dude. Whitney Houston. She was incredible. She was so nice to us. She was so nice to me. You held her fur? That's interesting. Yes, I held her fur coat. Do you want to take a nap? I'll wake you up. I was like, no, I have to go right back to school in like an hour. So my mom made me like some toast. And I turned around and I went to school on no sleep. And I think I slept like a little nap on the train down because rush hour. And then we go into the mean teacher and I'm like scared. And here we go again. If I flunk this, I'm done. I'm never going to get my music degree. And she asked about how the trip was, and we relayed the story. And she was so insulted about the McDonald's that she stopped the final exams. She suspended the exams to give us a lecture about how we were treated badly, and when she had taken groups to Washington in the past for special events with the president or whoever, they were given 4-star dinners and then treated, slept at the White House or some bullshit just to make us feel bad. I was like, I had a great time and I don't regret anything. I don't know why you would harsh teenage kids fucking mood. And I'm exhausted. I could have been asleep. Like, why am I here if we're not getting this test? The only reason I'm in this building, it's the last day of high school. I wouldn't be here except to get the test. She's like, I'm here a few more days. You could come in at any time and take the exam. That ended up helping me because I ended up coming in, taking the exam by myself, passed the exam. She was like, how come you couldn't do this every other time I tried to give you a test? I was like, I don't have problems. Anyway, that is the Whitney Houston story. It is not made up. There's a whole bunch of other people in my high school that know I was there and I sang for the president. Not a president I loved in hindsight, although in this case he makes the current guy look great, but oh well. It was quite an experience, and one I will never forget, and certainly stayed with me. And it goes to show you that you can be one of the biggest selling female artist of all time at the time, and you can be a huge millionaire and a super success, and you can still be humble and nice. And she was humble and nice, and it really meant a lot to all of us, and I will never forget it. And it was pretty amazing. Certainly one of the highlights of my young life, and one of my highlights as a performer, although I went on to perform again thousands of shows and bands, and I had some amazing times doing that too. But yeah, that is episode 4 of War Stories. I sang with Whitney Houston. Thanks for being here again. It's just been a pleasure to share these stories with you. I hope you get something out of it. Drop a comment below, like and subscribe to Ghost Cult on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for being here. Talk soon.